Hey there, it's Lucas Catton, and today I want to talk about being responsible for your communication, or how we can all be responsible for our communication with others. And there's lots of different levels and lots of different shades of this, and many different ways that it can go. And on the extreme side, there can be where you get into like bullying and things like that. And some people are very dismissive of that, especially through some online stuff, that you can say whatever you want to someone and whatever, it's just words. And it's not just words. There's actually for example, in the behavioral health field, there's a lot of effort to adjust the language used when talking about someone who is suffering through a condition in life currently. So they're having a difficulty, and whether or not they want to call it a disorder or something else, giving these labels can be damaging, not only to them because they then obviously take on this thing, or especially to them because they may take on this new persona as being this label, or having this thing, that they now identify with. But also when people are looking at them and being degrading toward them because the language itself, sometimes totally unintended, but it can be difficult when you're dealing with race relations, when you're dealing with gender issues, when you're dealing with lots of different things. Communication is important. The words that are used are important. And despite even sometimes intent, because I've been extremely guilty in this before, having good intent but saying something that can produce a negative result in another person can be difficult. With the bullying itself, there's an interesting study that I came across when doing some writing a few months ago about it was actually in the Lancet Psychiatry edition. It's a journal over in England, and it talks about childhood bullying actually has worse effects on mental health in young adults than being maltreated, than being physically harmed. That the continued mental anguish from being bullied and harassed and made fun of and things like that actually have a longer lasting, deeper cut or negative result in young adults as they're growing up. And for someone to simply say, have thicker skin or suck it up is completely unfair. Now, as I mentioned at the very start, there are shades of things in that people do need to also understand that we all have our own, let's say, filters that we're receiving communication with, and that we're seeing or hearing things from our own realities at that particular point in time. And we may misinterpret someone else's communication, and I'm just as guilty as anyone else out there, for sure. There are times where I have certainly mistaken communication as being potentially offensive or derogatory or something else, even though it may not have been intended that way. And the flip side of that coin is sometimes people also really need to understand that even if they are being direct or potentially cold or say something that could be hurtful to another person, even if they don't in their minds intend it to be hurtful, becoming more aware of their communication as a whole and the result that it can produce in another person, they do have that responsibility as well. So it's actually both sides. It's not just one or just the other in most cases. It is what is the intent, what is the energy behind that communication. It is what is the words themselves that are used. From this end, and from the receiving end, it is how are we interpreting that? Is it just on face value? Is there some more meaning to it? Maybe we jump to conclusions. There could be lots of different things. So it really is on both sides in most cases. There was actually a great book that was recommended to me a couple years ago, and it's called Nonviolent Communication: A Language of Life, and it's from Marshall Rosenberg, Marshall B. Rosenberg, PhD. And this book is really great because it helps to develop a form of communicating that can diffuse even contentious situations. And in cases where intent may not be understood and words may not be used that maybe people aren't understanding the result or the effect it's having on someone else, that there's a way to come to an understanding with each other so that it is being communicated in a way and being received in a way where both sides, both people, or both groups, or etc., can really understand each other and can get it, and it doesn't have to get carried away. And I had to learn some pretty valuable lessons and things that I thought maybe I was helping someone with things that I've said or things that I have inferred even. And even though it was coming from maybe a good place or there was no ill intent, then looking back on it and realizing that the actual things that were said from that person's perspective were in fact maybe harmful or damaging or off-putting, and that I can be responsible for that. And maybe I can say, it's not just on them. And there are times where I see that people fall too far into this. Well, that's just their interpretation, or they're just being, overly sensitive, or they're just being whatever, and they want to, completely dismiss it. And frankly, that's really unfair, and it's not an accurate realization of how life works. So that's really my short message today, is to be aware of what we're communicating and how we're receiving other people's communication, and maybe keep in mind that you can be responsible for both ends. So if you're misinterpreting, maybe you can try and get clarification, and if you're communicating, maybe you can be a little bit more aware of how someone else might be receiving that. That's it for now. Check out lucascatton.com. Send me some feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Let's connect. Thanks.